Yes, I just started recording officially.
Yeah, I see it recording. Yeah.
And I will, well, I'm gonna put in the chat what introductory questions we're thinking we should all do once we've given it a few more minutes to let people trickle in. But we were thinking to go around, everyone could say their name, how you're involved with UTC or Carversville, and what you would most love to grow from seed and or your greatest seed starting accomplishment. Yeah, Noel, we were just thinking we'd give a couple more minutes until we get started.
Okay. I'm gonna hop off. But I wish you all a great session, and that if anything strange happens when I hop off, just text me.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye, y'all.
Have you all been able to get outside today?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working up some fields, pulling up some drip tape, getting ready for just basic field prep. So that's been nice. It's so beautiful out today.
Today.
What are you guys working on?
We're similarly just getting all the fields ready, doing some art projects. We just painted these high tunnels. I don't know if you can see them.
Oh, nice.
Well, we have time, do some beautification projects, and we've been all working also remotely a lot, just getting all of the technical things ready for the season, like distribution, which is what Evan's in charge of. So there's been a lot of that stuff.
Before the storm, before like the season really takes off, it's like get all the things ready that you need to.
Scary.
A lot of prep work to do.
Yep. But should we just get well, yeah, let's just for everyone's time, so you can get started. Like I said, I put in the chat some introductory questions. I'll start and then I'll pass it to someone, and then we can just keep going. So yeah, my name's Nat. I'm the lead farmer here at this farm, Neighborhood Foods Farm, Urban Tree Connection, and I would really. This is my own question, but I need to think about it. What would I most love to grow from seed? I would really love to be able to grow okra from seed. Okra, and I have never done that.
Okra, nice.
Okay. So I will pass it over to you, Steve.
Hi, my name's Steve Tomlinson. I'm the farm manager at Carversville Farm Foundation, and we're working with Urban Tree Connection to grow them some plant starts. We love partnering with urban gardens in the Philadelphia area to donate our seedlings to them to produce a lot of food for that community. So I'm pumped to be here, and I love growing everything from seed. So that's the answer to my question. Should I pass it around the room a little bit to the people that are in here?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd love that.
Just introduce yourself.
My name's Jonathan. I'm actually a livestock apprentice here. But I've also done lots of urban gardening and urban farming. I'm gonna second you with okra, actually. It's probably my favorite flower in the garden. And it's kind of like a farmer's only treat because it closes so early in the morning.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a second year vegetable apprentice here. Pretty happy to be back. So I think my biggest accomplishment would be learning how to seed start some flowers. I'm not as well versed in flowers, so I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm Carolyn. I'm a first-year vegetable apprentice here at Carversville. What I would love to grow from seed, I have some wild blueberries that I've had in my freezer from the farm that I was working at last season in New Hampshire that I would love to grow, and I probably missed my opportunity, but I'd love to do that, fruit from seed.
All right. Hello, I'm Kincaid. I'm another one of the apprentices here at Carversville. The most fun I ever had was I helped my mom get some pepper plants going in her kitchen that are like still, I think they're still alive. I'd have to ask her, but yeah, those are like indoors. They've been growing year after year and they're kind of huge now. That was a lot of fun.
Hey y'all, can you still hear us? We got some equipment running in the shop. Yeah. Well, I'm Sam, one of the vegetable managers here at the farm. We've been, the past 2 years, really interested in learning more about starting our herbs from seed. So that's been a learning curve for us. We have always bought plugs from nurseries and we're trial and error doing our own herbs from seed, and one of the perennial herbs that have been kind of a learning curve for us. So that's what I'm most interested in learning about with seed starting.
That's everyone.
Sweet. All right. Well, Mike, Maggie, Chris, any of you can jump in.
Okay, hi, I'm Chris. I'm involved with UTC as a volunteer and my captain with their produce distribution through the summer season. What I most love to grow from seed, I'm interested in herbs right now. So that's my interest at this point. Thank you.
And I guess I'll go. I'm Maggie. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista at UTC currently, and we've had like a little garden at my house for a long time, but the only thing that we're able to consistently keep going is sage. So that's the one thing from seed that we've got going.
All right, and I'm Mike. I'm the community land steward at Urban Tree Connection. Been with them for about 2 years now and oversee our community garden side. What I most love to grow from seed is the White Wonder watermelon. And the greatest seed starting accomplishment, I'd say, is starting Snapdragon and Coxcomb from seed.
Nice.
Cool. Hi, I'm Devin. I'm the food distribution coordinator at UTC for the farm site here. And I think I'm with Chris. I've been interested in herbs pretty heavily lately. And so I would love to learn how to grow some different herbs medicinally from seed, like, I don't know, like skullcap or lavender, rosemary, all kinds of everything. I don't know what to start with, but very curious about it.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. I'm gonna share my screen and show you all the video that Carversville so kindly put together for us. And it's a video that we can always go back and reference because we're recording this Zoom session and we're gonna put it on our YouTube page. So if anyone wants to share it with anyone, definitely feel free to do that. But yeah, does anyone have any questions before I put the video on, or anything from you guys, Carversville, that you wanted to say before we start the video?
No, it's I guess, yeah, thank you for giving us this opportunity to make a video for you guys. And hopefully it's a guide to cover some seed starting basics. And then we can take question and answers and get into any topic you want to after that applies. So enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. All right, give me 1 minute. Share screen. Let me know if you can't hear it.
Hey y'all, I'm Sam. I'm one of the vegetable farmers here at Carversville Farm Foundation in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I'm going to walk you through the steps of seeding in a greenhouse. First step is to go through a couple things with our seed starting mix. We use McEnroe Organic Light Growing Mix. It's a mix of organic compost, peat moss, and perlite, which is a natural supplement. There's a lot of different seed starting mixes, and they'll all have different ingredients. And so find what's right for you. This is what we use. We love it. We've been using it for years. That's why we stick with it. So the first step is to decide what type tray you're going to use for your seed. There's a couple different types and different sizes. There are a lot of different variations. We use primarily these Prop Tech trays, which are 144 cell. We use these from everything from our brassicas, as collard greens and kale, to head lettuce, even some of our cut and come again Salanova greens. We've got 50 trays for bigger crops. Most of our cucurbits are what we sow in here. All our zucchini successions, melons, our squash are all going in our 50s. They like a little bit larger growth in the root system. So before we get into our seeds, we want to fill our trays with soil. There's a couple of things to keep in mind when you're filling your trays. First is the moisture content of your soil. This McEnroe mix comes pretty moist. We do add about a half a gallon of water per bag. And that gives us our optimal moisture level in our mix. So when you're packing trays, you're gonna fill with soil. There's a lot of ways to do this. We just use our hands. You can get a scoop. You can make a little table here to keep it at the right height. This is a table that works really well for us. So I do it once over. All right, so that's just loosely filled with soil. I wanna make sure that there are no air pockets in my cells so that we can have really good seed to soil contact for successful germination. So that's just once. As you can see, there's a lot of air in that soil. So I'm gonna do a second application. I'm gonna use both of my hands to push some force down with even pressure, just to make sure I'm pushing those air pockets out and having a nice filled cell. And then checking my edges. It's really easy to forget the edges. That seems good. And now it's ready to be seeded. All right, now that we have a nicely packed tray, we're ready for our seed. The last step before seeding is to make our holes or our dibbles. The one thing to keep in mind before seeding the tray is how deep your seed needs to be. We've got a couple different seeds here. I'm going to seed this tray with pelleted head lettuce, which is this nice round seed. And the rule to go off of is you want to seed this depth that's twice the diameter of the seed. So this is the one I'm doing today. And I'm going to do about a ½ inch deep. This is kale. It's a lot smaller. This is chard, a little bigger. So it's not consistent depth for every seed. Don't want it to be too deep. So I dibble by hand with this. There are dibblers you can buy to make this a lot quicker. We like to use our hands so that we can see every cell we're dibbling. With the dibbler, sometimes it can be easy to dibble it too deep. So I'm gonna get my seed out. 1 seed per cell. This has a high germination rate. So we don't need to worry about putting 2. If it's a lower germination rate, you might want to put 2 seeds per cell and then thin out the second transplant. So I'm just going to use my hand. And like so. That's a little shallow. I'm checking each one. That looks good. And adjusting as I seed. You'll get quicker at this. There are a couple different seeding tools you can use. There's vacuum seeders, there's drop seeders, there's other hand seeders you can use. to make this work for your system. All right, now that our tray is fully seeded, we have a couple steps left before it's ready to get watered in and placed on our seed tables. We're going to start with covering it with a light top dress of just our regular seed starting mix. And that's same concept as when we're packing the trays, is we want to have nice seed to soil contact. So this doesn't need to be a whole lot. It's really just a light sprinkle on each cell. Even pack that down on top of the seed, making sure I'm not brushing seed cells. Now, most of the time, this would be just fine. You could go ahead and water this in, and your seeds will germinate. All right, now that our tray is seeded and top dressed and packed in, I'm gonna create a label. We just use these wooden labels here. You can use popsicle sticks or tape. This is what we use. So it's my crop variety, and then I write the date on the backside to know when we seeded it. Place it in my corner here, and now we're ready to water it in. And with watering, right after seeding, you just want to make sure your water pressure isn't too high, so that it doesn't dislodge the seed from the cell. There's a lot of different watering wands as well. This is the one we use. It's got a couple different pressures. I'm going to keep this on more of a medium-low pressure. If it's too low, it also won't be effective. So we'll make sure we're watering nice and evenly across the tray and getting all the surface area of the soil. Across. Just a little bit, it's a little high, a little lower there. Across. Starting to see a little sheen on top. Once I see that sheen, that's the indicator that it's got enough water. And that's our tray. All right, once your seeds have germinated, depending on how many seeds per cell you use, you'll also have to thin your trays. For certain crops with really small seed, we're usually using 2 seeds per cell. This is a great example. This is celery root. It's extremely small seed. So to make sure we have 100% success rate with germination, we seed 2 seeds per cell. So now that it's up and it's got its first leaves on it, it's time to thin. And thinning is just like if you were in the field and you direct sowed some beets, you need to thin those out as well to make sure that they're not competing for space. And each cell will be a nice celery root. So I'm just gonna make sure I'm gonna locate the strongest and more centered celery root here. I'm gonna hold that gently and I'm gonna pull this one out. And now I've got 1 celery root per cell. So I'm gonna go through and do this, and hold that middle one, make sure I'm not pulling both out. You can use clippers if you're worried about pulling both out at the same time. Sometimes your hands are just fine. All right, that was seed starting here at Carversville Farm Foundation. Like I said, there's many different ways to go about this. There's many different tray sizes, different tools. These are the steps that we implement because we have great success with them, but they do not need to be followed verbatim. It's just to be used as a guide. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you so much. That was very, very helpful. yeah, we were thinking that we would open it up for people to ask any questions they may have or any comments they may have, and I'm gonna record those questions right here, along with any answers that we may receive. Um, but yeah, thanks again. That was very, very clear, and I feel like we'll definitely be referencing it in the future. Um, so yeah, does anyone have any questions to start it off?
Talking on mute. Yeah, in terms of the trays, how you had specifically smaller trays versus the larger trays when it came to the melon and squash, and is that because you want more ground cover or ground space before you transplant versus the other crops?
Yeah, Mike, that's a good question. It really has to do with the size of the plant. So the watermelon and squash and tomatoes tend to get really big. So they need more space in there for their roots. So we give them a larger cell. I would say it's pretty direct. The amount of room you give a plant, the larger it grows. So sometimes we're using smaller cells to pack in more plants, like if we were doing onions, because we're going to plant a lot because the in-row spacing out in the field is pretty small. But that plant would do really well in a larger pot because it would have more room for its roots. We're doing a lot of transplanting, so we have to make sure that the roots are full in that cell, but not root bound, so they're not wrapping around each other, so that we can pull that plug out of the cell very easily and then plant it in the ground. So that's good to know why we're using those different types of cells, because they have a different application depending on what we're doing out in the field. But yeah, the zucchini, the watermelon, the squash, the winter squash, those are all in those 50s, which refers to 50 cells per tray. Then the rest of it, we do it in those smaller 144s because we're planting a lot of them out.
And are there any type of crops that you try to stay away from in terms of starting them in cells, say like maybe strawberries, or would you do the same for strawberry seeds?
I'm going to turn this question over to Sam. Is that right?
Sure, I don't know specifically about strawberries.
Yes.
Because I've never grown strawberries from seed. But yeah, there's a lot of crops that we don't seed in the greenhouse, and that we want to specifically direct sow out in the field. A lot of those tend to be root crops, turnips, radishes. We're direct sowing. They don't like to be transplanted. People are testing that right now. Like, it's hard to say 100% don't try something, because I saw people recently transplanting radishes just to get a jump on their spring production. With strawberries, I'm not 100% sure what you would do. I've never grown them seed. Yeah.
Mike, I know a little bit about strawberries. Those strawberries are usually grown through their runners. So a mature strawberry plant will send out a runner. That runner then is potted onto like a pot of soil, and then they clip it off the main mother plant. Then that strawberry plant in that condition needs to be misted very specifically for a certain number of days. So starting a strawberry plant from seed, I think, is pretty difficult, but you could probably do it. It may take you, I think it's like almost 3 years till you'll get a possible strawberry from that plant. So they're always potting on these runners. It's like a very specific, you can also plant it by its bare root too. So that's coming from that runner that I'm talking about. So with strawberries, short story is I usually buy them from other greenhouses that specialize in the strawberry plant industry, and usually planted in the fall if you want to get a spring crop. You can plant them in the spring, but you might not get a crop for like a really high yielding crop for an entire year, perhaps, because it likes to overwinter. And then you have to weed it. So there's two different ways you can do it, but I definitely go to the experts on strawberries.
Cool. I have a question about the soil, the soil that you use to start the seeds. Is there, I know that you all use that one specific type, but is there anything that you would typically avoid, or one specific mixture ratio that you always just use because it always ends up working for you?
Well, I mean, we're certified organic, so I'm always going towards the like OMRI approved soil mixes. It's OMRI. That's like the list that the organic certification uses to approve materials. So if you stick with that and you pick a light potting mix, that could be McEnroe, where we get ours. That could be Pro Mix, which you can get maybe even in garden centers. Those all work really well. When you start trying to do more, you start adding some elements into your potting mix that maybe would produce healthier starts if they're in the greenhouse for longer, but it's not necessarily an absolute that you have to do that. When you hit the pro level, people are making their own mix entirely, where they're sifting compost and adding the nutrients that a company like Pro Mix or McEnroe is doing for you, and adding their own perlite. So all these soil mixes potting mixes are soilless, meaning that they're made from compost. So they're not like the soil that we plant into. So that's what they mean by soilless potting mix. It's a little more controlled, so it's not carrying pathogens or anything that would mess up potentially your transplant starts.
Gotcha. Cool.
Those ratios can be found online. Like I use a basic ratio, and they'll say they're like four. I was just saying you can look that stuff online pretty easily. Just a basic seed starting mix. I think it's like a 4:2 to 1 ratio of compost, peat moss to perlite. So a lot of stuff you can find online. And I used to make my own because I was on a budget, and it wasn't the best. We did a lot of compost teas also later because we were kind of on a low budget, but it was just peat moss, vermiculite, and compost.
I had a question. I was wondering if any of you had recommendations for home gardeners, like if people maybe don't have a greenhouse or like a high tunnel where they can put their seed trays, like where might be a good place for a home gardener to be starting seed.
That's a great question. If I was a home gardener, I would probably start my seed like outside in full sun, like around after the frost date when it's kind of warm. So I probably wouldn't try to push it too hard as far as trying to start it indoors. And that would go along with the season more of what's available just outside. So if you had a big pot and you filled it with potting mix and you wanted to start seed that way, that would definitely be the easiest and probably best way to go. You want full sun though, and keep it watered and moist.
Gotcha. So outside's better.
A follow-up to that question is, if you do start your seeds indoors and then do transfer outside, what's the best tips for acclimating your starts to the sun?
So sure, that would be after you think the plant is ready, which is usually like four weeks or so after it germinates, it's usually ready to go outside. At that point, it's called hardening off. So you can put the plant tray outside and reduce the water a little bit, but don't let it completely dry out. Try to expose it to some wind so it starts to get a little bit stronger. And then after about a week of doing that or less, you're ready to plant it in the ground. We do that sometimes, and other times we don't, and we just plant it. But you're trying to give your plant, set it up for success. So you want it to have like an easy transition from its condition of being inside, introducing it to outside, and then planting it. It gets shocked if it goes from being an inside environment where it's all warm and coddled to being outside and it gets really windy and it's harsh. So you think about the transition of the environment, that would be the best you can do.
One more question from me. Do you all ever use fertilizer at some point in the process of starting your seed, or is that saved for when it's actually in the ground?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely put the fertilizer in the bed before we plant, and we'll upload and put enough fertilizer for the whole plant in the bed, and then we'll put our seedling in that bed. Because as the plant grows and the roots go to find the nutrients it wants, it will take it at that point when it's ready. So us as farmers are just trying to create the right environment for that plant to flourish in. So that would be the best way to do it. You can get by with if your plants are like, look, your seedlings are looking really, they're in the greenhouse too long, and you want to, it's kind of like a oh whoops moment where you want to spray some nutrients on it. You could try to do that to revive them, but ideally you're never in that scenario. We don't really try to do that too much.
Gotcha. Cool. Any other questions from anyone?
I do want to say that if you guys have any questions, ever really, you can always email me and we can answer them for sure. If something comes up later. So just as a resource, that's totally available too.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Yeah, and this all has been so great. We're really trying to like solidify the systems and practices that we use and figure out how to farm in the best way possible, and also be able to pass that information along to people in the community and also to future farmers here at UTC, farmers and gardeners. So to be able to record this and also have that video is really, really amazing. So we really appreciate it, and it's something that we want to continue to utilize and
Absolutely. We're glad to be doing this. And one of the best advice I ever got about plants was that plants really want to live. No matter what you do, if you make a mistake or you're not in the right environment, that plant really wants to survive. So it's gonna do whatever it can to grow. So, everyone makes mistakes, things happen. Don't be afraid. You can always try again, if it doesn't work out. And yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all. I guess I'll see you all later.
All right. Have a good day.
Meet you.
Done.
Bye. Bye, Sheila. Bye, Mike. Bye, Maggie.